Just start with how everybody is after Tuesday. It's a long old trek and all the rest of it. Are the body's shaping up okay?
Yeah, not too bad. Sinks has picked up a little injury, so he's going to be missing for the weekend. So we're still assessing that at the moment. But on the whole, I think we were able to stay up, do some recovery work Wednesday morning before travelling back. So the lads seem in a good spot.
Okay. And is that something that I guess when you're travelling such long distances, you've got to think of creative ways of getting the best recovery you can?
Yeah, definitely that. And there was other travelling issues that kind of made the decision: do we travel back and get back at 4 or 5 in the morning, or do we stay after the game and able to use the hotel facilities the day after and do some proper work recovery, travel back, and then obviously the lads then can catch up on their sleep yesterday. So it was we're very fortunate to be able to do it. I think the preparation then for the lads has been as good as it can be, and then it's a case of now using that to our advantage for the weekend.
Yeah. And with the Sunderland game, we've kind of been here a little bit, haven't we, in terms of really good performance, probably not getting what you wanted out of it. How close, how frustrated are you that you're almost a nearly team at the moment, which is not a bad thing, but it's not where you want to be?
Yeah, I think it's the final bit, right? It's the hardest bit, but I think once it does click, and can't keep saying about it, I think you are able then to go on a run, and I think you have to learn it. I don't think it's something that just happened. You don't go from a lot of the lads in their career, winning some, losing some, performing well, not performing well, to all of a sudden consistently performing and consistently winning. I think that's the bit we're chasing. I think Portsmouth was probably obviously a slight anomaly in how the lads have performed and what they've put in. I think it was good to see us back to the expectation of running, fighting, competing, putting your bodies on the line, showing a bit of bravery with the ball as well, which we did at times, and then it's those key moments, the momentum shifts, where we have the opportunity to go 2 ahead and put the game to bed a little bit, to then we end up losing arguably the 3 points and coming away with 1. So it's the final bit for me, I think, in terms of being able to win games and learning to win games. But it's the big thing is it's not far away. I think that's what I don't think many people can argue, is that we've hit a level of consistency so far this season, performance-wise.
And is that so? I would imagine you take heart from that. You're looking at that and thinking it's just that little step. It's just the fact that it's the hardest step. It makes it frustrating.
Yeah, and I think it's definitely the hardest part. But I think the lads need to step up as well. I think we've been honest. It's a really good group that we can be honest and have those quite tough conversations and put it out there. I think in terms of if you want to be successful, if you want to win, if we want to get where we want to get to, people have to make sure they step up and they be counted and they're good enough. And I think that's the bit. I think the lads are desperate to do it. We'll give everything we can, but I think ultimately it's when I look back, what we can't keep saying is we're performing well and not picking up points. We're in an industry where you have to deliver, and that's me, that's players, that's everybody. So are we heading in the right direction? 100%. But over time we'll have to make sure that people are held accountable and people deliver, because ultimately we all want to win.
And the way the game has changed in terms of you go back 20 years and it's hairdryers and Fergie and all those kind of things, that doesn't happen now. But can you be quite blunt with players and say that here in that particular instance wasn't good enough?
Yeah, definitely. The hairdryer still comes out every now and then. I think it's still an important part of it. It's probably just a lot, even if you hear about those stuff, how often it was used was very, very rare. I think our angle is always about trying to improve, and that's where you look at it. Some of the lads are getting better. The lads are improving. It's the speed they do it at. That's the bit for me. It's it's not good enough. To contribute numbers 1 in 4 games or 5 games. It has to be every week, every other week, where minimum. You get the rewards for all your hard work and the performances you put in. So it's definitely done in different ways. Some lads will need a prod, some will be sat and show video, some lads we'd leave alone. I think that's the skill of it, and that's the bit, day to day, getting to know the players, their personalities, how do they respond, when are we on them, when do we leave them a little bit, when do they need a bit of confidence, when do they need getting after. I think that's the challenge and that's the skill, and it'll be different I think for each of them across the course of the season. It's not just one approach all the time. I think it's a bit of everything.
And particularly in the final third, that decision making, so taking the Portsmouth game out of it defensively, you've been really solid for quite a long time, and we know you've been working on sort of layering in bits and pieces to try and improve that end of the field. Is it like a switch that flicks, and when collectively they get it, it will go really quickly, or is it a much slower process than that?
I want it quick. I think if we want to win now, we need it quick. And that's it. I think you try every way. Is it technical? Is it psychological? Is it how do we replicate the lads getting in those positions and what we can't replicate is 25,000, and the pressure of 3 points. So I think it's one of those. I can't put a time frame on it. All I know is we do all the work every single day, consistently, and that's the bit that changes it for me. And I think over time, what you then see are the ones that are able to step up and deliver, and the ones that won't be.
So a lot of work obviously goes on away from what happens on 3 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon. So for somebody, I know we've spoken to him about him a little bit, like Fally, especially with Sinks being injured, he is your option off the bench, assuming that Naki starts. Yeah, I know. Well, yeah, I think I'm confident enough on that. But what are the kind of things that you're doing in drills with him? Not specifics, but what are you trying to improve him to make him get to where you need him to be?
Numerous aspects to it. I think you also take into account someone like Fally, the overseas move, which is again completely different for him. Some people adapt quickly, others take a bit more time. He's had to be patient, understandably. I knew, in terms of training level from the start, he obviously scored a couple of really good goals, but behind that, the consistency of the training was one that we knew that he'd need to get better at. I think it's a big jump up. I think the intensity of the league, especially I think the champion. You switch off for a second in the championship, you're talking 2 or 3 meters. That's the difference between us being broken and them being in on goal, and us forcing them back and pressing. They're the margins we're talking about. So for someone like Fally, it's taking a little bit of time. He's massively training better now. So he's definitely heading in the right direction. I think sometimes when you work on the bits they need, their strengths suffer a little bit. All their energy is going into the things that we're trying to get them to do. So the ability to refocus quicker, to stay present, to be cleaner with the basics. You sometimes then the strengths naturally suffer, but what you then do when you do come out of it, you come out at a higher level, and that for me is on that upward curve at the minute. He's definitely heading in the right direction. I haven't shifted away from my thoughts on Fally. I know he won't have the minutes he wants, but I know he's going to be important for us, in the future. So I'm sitting with him this afternoon actually. It's just constant. It's one of those where you can't put a time frame on development, but the work goes in to make sure that we're pushing them.
Because genuinely, from what we saw early in the season, you can see there's a hell of a player in there. But you're right, some of those basics needed to be brought up. But you're seeing a situation where, without putting a time frame on it, at some point this season, you'll have what you need from him, and hopefully he can then go and show what he's capable of.
Yeah, definitely. And I thought we saw it against Norwich when he came on. I thought he was really good against Norwich. He did really well. And like I said, it's those bits, those. Naturally when you the championship's quicker than what he's used to, the intensity is higher, so naturally then what people tend to go after is the technical stuff, but for me it's actually the psychological stuff. It's thinking quicker, it's seeing the pictures quicker, it's having the composure under pressure to do it quicker. So again, for me it's affect the psychological stuff, and then I know the technical stuff's in there, so they're the bits we're working on. He's definitely improving daily. Obviously I get to see him every day. The staff do a great job in working with him, and like I said, he'll be one that'll finish strong.
So after a couple of long away trips, nice to be back at Ashton Gate this weekend against the Queen's Park Rangers team that have been a little bit erratic probably this year.
Yeah, you have to look into the last 4 games. For me, current form, they're 4 clean sheets in a row, so we know it'll be tough in terms of team to break down, and they'll be well organised. Good coach, set up really well for me. So again, we know it comes back on us. We have to match the intensity, the aggression, the desire to defend like we did the other night, and try and take bits of the quality from Plymouth, and that's what you're chasing ultimately, a bit of all your good stuff in recent games to try and bring it all together against another team that are desperate for points as well. So it's a tough game, but one that we're looking forward to. Delighted to get back. I think us having the extra day, although we've travelled, they played Wednesday. I think that can if we can really generate a noise and atmosphere, and from the off, Leeds is a special one close to my heart. If we can get anywhere near that from the start of the game, the energy, the atmosphere in the place, and make it really difficult for QPR, it'll definitely give our lads a lift, and hopefully we can then go on and put on a performance and get the win that we want.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Liam, you mentioned Sinks' injury. What exactly is the issue there?
Yeah, like I said, it's going to be a while. We're looking at the minute. We're just assessing, so I'll let you know when we know.
Perfect. Team news-wise, is there anyone back who missed Sunderland and Portsmouth? I was thinking Scott.
Yeah, Twiney trained today and's in contention. Ross McCrory's in contention as well, and George Tanner's been back doing bits this week as well. So we've got a few more bodies back this week, which is really really nice to see their faces out on the grass as well. So we've got a few more options. It might be a little early for some, but that's a decision I have to make this afternoon.
It gives you that bit more balance. You've obviously Zach's done a really good job at right back, but you've not really had a out and out right back for a few months now. So it must be nice to have that depth coming back into the squad.
Yeah, just a balance. I think naturally having people that play that position. Ross was in a really good spot, as was George pre their injury. So they're two that we've done really well for us. So we're obviously delighted that they're closer to being back, and especially with the heavy period coming up, it's obviously really good to have such quality and experience back.
Does that almost give you a bit more of a dilemma now, because you changed between the 3 and the 4, and the 3 was really useful second half at Sunderland, but if you've got an actual right back fit, does that give you another dilemma when picking the team?
Not really. We were doing it even when they were fit. I think if you look when they were fit, we were tweaking and changing things. The in-possession doesn't change a huge amount. Probably just provides a different profile on the width if we need it. The same as an out of possession, where the lads I think have been brilliant at going between 4 and 5. We obviously started the other night with a 4 to try and get pressure higher, but naturally they changed what they did and made it more difficult. So we then countered that, and that's football. I do see it as cat and mouse. It's like a game of chess, right? Where we do something, they counter it, and that happens in the game. I thought we then came out second half, and because we changed and added the energy and changed shape, we were able to get pressure higher, and obviously helped us in terms of going ahead. So I think for me it's great to have them back. I look at them as footballers. It's then a case of game to game, what do we need to do, but ultimately our principles don't change.
With Fally, does it become even harder for him to adapt? Does it take a bit longer because of the schedule with how many games there are? I'm assuming your time on the grass with him is more limited than if earlier in the season where you've only got 1 game a week. Yeah,
elements of it, but the work still continues. I think it's obsessive by it, to be fair, all of us as a staff. And culturally, the lads are great now. I have to pull them in off the training pitches because they're out there working on extras. Even today, it's a light session, but still having to kick people off the grass because we've got a game tomorrow. So culturally, it's in a good spot where we want that. Fally's one, he's had plenty of extra work, and like I said, Sink's not being available. I'm sure we'll provide another opportunity. It's then a case of, as with everybody, grabbing it. We've got the depth now. We've got the options to be able to change it. So ultimately, there is an element of pressure on players. When they're on the pitch, they have to stand up and deliver. If not, there's someone right behind them ready to take their place.
I think we saw that a bit on Tuesday night with Max Bird, who's been so good, and then George Earthy and Sam Bell came on, had a real impact. That competition for places can only be a good thing, I guess, with the schedule as it is at the moment.
Yeah, and the changes are, sometimes they're performance related. Other times, like the other night, it was a little bit of energy. I thought we needed fresher legs to be able to, engage higher. Belly was a slightly more tactical one, so that's the bit. Make changes for numerous reasons. So having the options this time and now has allowed us to change games and stay competitive in games. Whether we're ahead or behind or whatever it looks like, we're able to bring on quality from the bench, which we weren't able to do too often last year. Now we're in a much better position.
I wanted to touch on George because obviously he's had to wait for that chance to play as the 10. Really, he's playing at right back with injuries. He's had to wait for that opportunity. How impressed have you been, and what qualities do you think he offers in that position that players like Scott and Max don't? What do you think he does differently?
I think he's just a terrific footballer, really intelligent. Love working with him. He's everything you want. He's not happy when he doesn't play, but at the same point turns up, does everything to make sure the starting lineup are ready. He's all in. He's a terrific character, and I think on top of that, he's quality. I think you see his energy, the way he triggers a press, he gets after it, and then, like I said, I think back to, was it the 3rd goal against Plymouth, where he brings it out the sky and knocks it through his legs. I think he's just got quality. I think he's got really good awareness, technically very good. He's just a really good all-round footballer. Hence, play him 10. I could probably play him on the whole base of a midfield. I could play him as we did at Norwich away in a wing-back position, and of course, I think the 10 suits him more, allowing him to bring his strengths. But the fact you can move him around shows, what talent he's got as a footballer.
I spoke to Naki about coming on as a substitute last week, and how sometimes he feels it takes a bit of time to get into a game, especially as a striker. I just wondered how you thought the team have adapted when you've changed the striker in games sometimes, because obviously it's not easy. You've mentioned the 3 different profiles of strikers. Do you think the team have adapted well enough in games when Sinks has come on for Naki or Fally's come on for Naki? Change the style.
It's too general a question, to be honest. I think some games it's worked really well, others it hasn't. You think around Millwall it was excellent. I think other Sheffield United second half, Sinks wins a penalty. I think other games it's probably not happened. I think there's an expectation because you know what someone can do in a previous game when you put them on that it should just happen because of what qualities they've got. But there's so many factors. I actually think it's a real challenge sometimes. The game's up and running, all the players that are playing are up to a certain speed, and the rhythm of the game and the feeling of the game. Naturally when you come on, sat on the bench for 60 minutes, 70 minutes, whatever it is, you're not at the tempo of it. You can run down the touchline and warm up, but you're not at the tempo. Your awareness, the emotional side of it takes you a bit of time, and that sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I think in general, if you look at the changes we made over the course of the season, they've had a real positive impact, but hey, they're not going to work every time.
Cheers, Liam.
Cheers.
I just wonder, we're getting towards Christmas now, which traditionally feels like we've reached the halfway point of the season. And what kind of platform do you think the first half of the campaign has given you to attack the second half of the season?
Yeah, I think everyone will jump to points and tables, right? Which again, I think we'd all we'd like more points, we'd like more wins, of course. But I think if I look at when we came in last year and where we were at to now, I think there's been huge progress in the performance element to it, which I do believe long term will get you the results that you need. I think when you look at it, there's 2.5 games where we've been really poor, the rest we've been competitive, and I think we've got young players that are improving. Anis is a good example. You look at his numbers last year to this year, he's heading in the right direction. The challenge is he's got to do it more now. That's the bit when you look at some of the games recently. It's the difference between a point or a loss to being able to win the game, and that's where I think we're at a little bit. Where, of course, you need people to step up, but I do look at it. I think we're definitely heading in the right direction. I think the lads are going to continue to get better. They're going to continue improving because of the experience, the work we've got, the depth we've got, and culturally because of how they are. So, I think when you look at it, going up there and getting a good point away at Sunderland, I think speaks volumes that they're progressing and heading forward.
Yeah, the sorts of places where you picked up points, has that been big ticks for you this season?
Yeah, I think so. But even some of the ones where historically we suffered last year. Plymouth at home was one where last year I don't remember us doing that too often. Whereas for me it was an excellent performance, similar to Millwall earlier in the year where games I remember losing at home to Millwall last season. I think that we're definitely heading in the right direction defensively. I think we've got back to a better level than what we started off at, and at the same point, I think we're definitely in a much better position attacking-wise. We're, I think creating more. We're, asking more questions. We're getting into areas now, and the quality of crosses is better. We're getting more bodies in and around the box. So I think it's definitely progressing, but naturally, it takes a little bit of time as well.
And when you look back at matches now, how much these days is analysing statistics, and how much is still the eye test and what you actually see when you watch a game?
Yeah, I'm big on eyes and feeling. I think it's a really, really important part. I think the data is really good in terms of, everyone obsesses on XG now, but if I cross it across the box and no one touches it, and someone should touch it, it doesn't count. So there's lots of pros and cons for the data. We use it. I think it's important to understand it, and it, especially over the course of a season, it will give you certain trends and certain patterns. Same as certain games, it will give you an idea of certain key points, certain things that you might not be aware of, and of course I think tracking our identity becomes quite important as well of what we want to be and how we want to play. So I look at now compared to last year, our pressing so much better than what we were last year. So that's an easy thing from the data that you can see as well as our eyes and watching everything. So it's definitely a combination of the two. I think for me, you never work in isolation, one or the other. I think when you've got it, I think it's understanding then which is in that given moment probably most important, and how do they cross over, how do they link.